Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
What's up, Knight fans? Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret podcast, show number 50, Eric Lopez. Can you believe it? We've made it to 50 shows in 1 year.
I can't believe I've done 50 shows with you and haven't strangled you yet. That's amazing.
Well, why do you think I record you via Skype?
That's a good point. That's a very good point. But well, see, now you get to miss out my tux.
Oh, that's right. We are busting out the dress blacks today because guess what? It is award day. This is our postseason 2017 Black and Gold Banneret postseason award show. And under the consultation of one Trace Trilka, we're going to call this one the Bannies. All right, our first annual Bannies. We've got a bunch of awards to hand out that, well, actually, we're not going to hand them out. What we're going to do, this is going to be a two-show process, all right? We're going to list the nominations for this show. When this show goes live, I'm going to put every award up in a Twitter poll, and they're going to be up for 1 week. And 1 week from when this goes live, we're going to take a look at the results, and that's who's going to win the award for each of this. So we got a lot to cover tonight. Make sure you follow us, as always, on blackandgoldbanneret.com and also on Facebook at Black and Gold Banneret. You can follow us on Twitter at UCF_Banneret. That's where all the Twitter polls are going to be. You can follow me at Jeff_Sharon. You can follow Eric at Eric Lopez Elo. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast via iTunes. Give us a subscribe and give us a rating there. You can also subscribe to us via Google Play, SoundCloud, and TuneIn Radio. So, all right, without further ado, this is our nomination show for the Bannies 2017 Black and Gold Banneret postseason award show. So here's the awards that we're going to give out. We're going to give out Male and Female Athlete of the Year, Coach of the Year, Team of the Year, Comeback Athlete of the Year, Breakout Athlete of the Year, Newcomer of the Year, Game of the Year, Play of the Year, Moment of the Year, and Performance of the Year. And we have up to 5 nominees for each. We're going to go through each of the categories with the 5 nominees. Then, Eric, you and I are each going to pick our votes for each of them. But in the end, the final result will be determined by you, the listener, to the Black and Gold Banneret podcast via our Twitter polls that we're going to have on our post, actually, for this show. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive right in. All right, we're going to start with the individual awards and Male Athlete of the Year. So we've got, so we're going to start off with, well, first of all, Matt Williams of men's basketball is our first nominee. And what a year that Matt had, considering that he almost didn't play for UCF at all this year. Did he, Eric?
Unbelievable. I don't think anybody expected the year that he would have, be all conference, considering he was on the way to go into Wake Forest and then changed his mind. What a phenomenal year. Brought that outside scoring consistently, among the best shooters in the country from a three-point land. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And really, this was a hard category. And just to try to narrow down who the finalists were, as you'll hear in a moment, but Matt Williams certainly, I don't know. I mean, the contributions he did this year was, I don't know if anybody expected it, even when he did come back.
Well, he started all 34 games. There were a lot of people we could have chosen for basketball, and even though Matt finished second in scoring behind B.J. Taylor as a senior, 15.2 points per game, 38% from three-point range. He made 120 three-point shots this year. 120 of his 170 field goals total were from three-point distance. So that gives you an idea. He is currently getting looks from the NBA. He has played himself into potentially a shot at the NBA. So our next nominee, Robbie Howell of baseball, the pitcher. A lot of guys you could have picked for baseball too this year, but Robbie started the season 10-0, finished 10-1 with a 3.32 earned run average through 2 complete games. Led the team in innings pitched with over 100. Led the team in strikeouts with 94, and was just an absolute stopper, up there on the hill this season for UCF baseball, wasn't he?
I mean, turned into an All-American. Think about that. With the great tradition his program has had, he turned himself into an All-American. Nobody would have expected that, and he really set the tone for this team on those Friday nights. Part of an improved staff overall, and he was just unbelievable, and now got drafted in Major League Baseball draft. And but what a great year. One of the best years any UCF pitcher has ever had.
Yeah, and it's a shame that one loss came in the tournament, the lone blemish on this whole season. What a year coming out. From football, Shaquem Griffin. What a year for him coming off. I mean, we know the story about him and his twin brother Shaquille, and we know the story about how he lost his hand. But in his junior season, he's American Athletic Conference Defensive Player of the Year, a guy that the previous regime said wouldn't amount to much more than a special teams player. He wins Defensive Player of the Year this year for UCF football.
Set the tone for that defense, which carried that team into a bowl game. And, he was just a phenomenal year for him. And to set that defense at times carried that team. And without him, he was the ringleader on that. And without that defense, they don't make a bowl game, and he earned it. He was phenomenal as the Defensive Player of the Year.
Moving on to men's soccer, Matthias Puusealo, the Finland native, another junior who came to UCF all the way back in 2014, initially as a freshman. He was highly touted, and it was a tough year this year for UCF men's soccer, no question about it. But Matthias was the real bright spot for the team. This year he led them in goals with 10, finished with 25 total points when you double the goals and add 1 per assist on 35 shots. No UCF player had more than 7 points on the year or more than 3 goals. He was an offensive force this year for UCF, wasn't he?
He was. And think about what you just said there about the offense. There was not a lot of offense around him. So if teams were locked in and focused to try to take him out, and it didn't work.
Right.
It was amazing. And I remember I was there the final day when they qualified for the tournament. They beat Cincinnati. I mean, they were trying to stop him all they can, and they just didn't have, it's just, he just found himself and had an unbelievable year. Unfortunately, didn't have enough around him to kind of, from a team standpoint, but, to put up 10 goals, he kind of gave him a chance every match.
And finally, for men's golf, Manuel Elvira, who tied for first at the Florida Gulf Coast Invitational, had 15 rounds of par or better, 5 top 10s, 6 top 20s, led the team in all those categories for men's golf, and was a key cog in UCF men's golf reaching the NCAA finals tournament, wasn't he?
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned the accolades right there. Part of a team that went as deep as they did. He's a big part of it, and what a year he had.
All right, so those are our 5 nominees: Matt Williams, Robbie Howell, Shaquem Griffin, Matthias Puusealo, and Manuel Elvira for Male Athlete of the Year. So, Lopez, who you got?
Oh, that's right. What a way to start.
It's going to be tough, man. Every one of these is going to be tough.
This is tough. I mean, I'm going to go with Griffin, because what I said earlier, without that defense, UCF doesn't go to a bowl game. And as great as Matt Williams had a year, I could argue that B.J. Taylor is the basketball player of the year. Look at how they struggled without him when he was hurt during the non-conference portion of the season. You can make an argument for Taco Fall, the defensive player of the year. Griffin set the tone for that defense, earning defensive player of the year, and a defense that really maybe even surprised some of us. We didn't know if this defense was going to be any good. They were atrocious in 2015. And this young man helped lead that defense make play after play after play. And certainly other guys contributed, but he was definitely the best player on that team. So I'm pulling hairs here, but I will go with Griffin.
Boy. I am going to go with Matt Williams. And the reason why is because, I thought that he set the tone for that team when he came back from flirting with Wake Forest, and when he, as a senior, came back and played himself back into the lineup and was such a tremendous scoring threat. Now, you're absolutely right. We could have had B.J. Taylor in there. We could have had Taco Fall in there. But Matt Williams, I thought, set the tone for the rest of the players on the roster in helping UCF men's basketball get to where they got under Johnny Dawkins in Johnny's first year. I think that, if Matt had left, and maybe there wouldn't have been quite as much, maybe legitimacy isn't quite the right word that I'm looking for, but there would have been. It wouldn't have been quite as. It just doesn't feel. It doesn't feel like it would have been the same year without Matt coming back and really providing, saying, I'm buying in, and if I'm buying in, the rest of you guys had better buy in, and they bought in. That's something that's a word that we kept saying about that team. So my vote goes to Matt Williams. Again, you're going to be able to vote on all of these via Twitter polls, which we have set up on our site. All right. Let's move over to the Female Athlete of the Year. Another 5 nominees. And the first one we're going to come up with, we're going to have is, boy, what a year for this young lady on the UCF cross country and track and field teams. Anne-Marie Blaney, the redshirt senior from Ocala, ended up being one of the most decorated distance runners in UCF history. Finished up her career at UCF with so many titles and setting school records all over the place in cross country and in track and field. She made it to the NCAAs this year, was key in helping UCF to the indoor championships as well. Anne-Marie Blaney, what a year for her in Knights cross country and track and field.
I mean, what? Well said. To the point where they actually did a feature on her locally on Spectrum Sports. They did a feature on her. That's how big it was. And you mentioned she was a big part of that indoor championship that UCF won, which cannot be ignored. So what a phenomenal career. She'll go down as one of the best of all time to come from UCF as far as the cross country there, the track there.
Speaking of a spectacular career, Jayla Hervey of volleyball, 5'11" senior from Huntsville, Alabama, finished up this season. By the time this season had ended, she had clearly established herself as the Knights' best player overall. She was an all-region first-teamer, recorded her 1,000th kill at UCF back in September. She scored 406.5 points for UCF this year, which was tops on the team. Was second on the team with 4.71 kills per set. And had the most kills at 504 total. Top 25 in the nation. What a weapon she was, and she showed such as good as she was last year, and she was good and had to be good with Kia Bright getting hurt. Jayla really took the reins of this team this year, helping UCF volleyball to a 23-win season.
It's going to be strange in the fall. UCF volleyball, where is the scoring going to come from, and who's going to make the kills? It's not going to be Jayla Hervey. That's going to be strange to say. What an impact she made in the program. No question about it. You just maybe taking the times for granted, right? You just took those kills for granted. I think that'll be one of the big questions in moving into the fall for volleyball is who will, not replace her, but who kind of picks up the scoring there.
Over to women's soccer. Carol Rodriguez, 99. She started all 19 games for UCF, led the team in goals with 12, added 2 assists. She was by far the leader on the team in shots on goal with 60. In shots with 62, shots on goal with 27. Highly decorated once again for Carol. Had that, not a bad way to follow up from that bicycle kick goal that she had last season. First team all conference. And UCF, this is how important she was to the team. in 2 seasons at UCF, she was a combined the nights were a combined 16, 1, and 2 whenever she scored a goal. What a senior season for the 5'8" Brazil native.
Well, just like I said for volleyball, one of the big questions in women's soccer, how you replace that production. That's going to be the big question. But you're right. She was clutch. And it seemed like when they needed a big goal in this past year, she provided it for them and was tremendous. What a run she had at UCF.
Over to women's golf. Our 4th nominee for this order, Ashley Holder, All-America performer. She had finished her career, her first 3 seasons at UCF. She finished in the top 3 in the American Athletic Conference championships. She breaks through, wins the individual championship in the American, advances to the NCAA, and she was just an absolute highlight every single time. She clinched UCF's championship on the final hole, on the 54th hole, with that big putt, and with one shot, clinched the team championship, clinched the individual championship, 4-time all-conference selection, averaged under 72 strokes per round. Not bad for a kid who came to UCF from Lake Nona, huh?
You've covered the golf program for a long time. She's got to be in the conversation for best golfer from that program's history. No? I mean,
she's certainly up there as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, she what a phenomenal career she had. I think we got a shot to see her at the next level, right? If she wants to, right? If she wants to pursue the professional tour, I don't see any reason why she can't do that. Part of a lot of success. You mentioned that throughout her career. I mean, I don't know. How would you compare her to like Caitlin Detlefson, who you covered as well? Detlefson was a great player at UCF. That's kind of the one that jumps out to mind in recent history, not even talking about Caroline Pinniger.
Yeah.
But she's got to, like I said, she's got to be in that, conversation, I would think, based on the resume.
It is so hard to choose between those 3, considering, I've covered, all 3 of them in some respect, but, I'm probably going to be corrected. I should be corrected if I'm wrong, but I don't believe Carolyn won the individual championship, and I don't think Katie did either.
There you go. That's a point right there. That's
shows
a
you how good Ashley was for UCF, and the consistency too. That she finally broke through. We're really proud of her for doing that. And then finally, Aaliyah Gregory from women's basketball. The senior from now she's a senior. Last year she was a junior from Strawberry Crest High School just outside of Tampa. Eclipsed the 1,000-point mark, led the team in scoring, started 30 of 31 games, 16 points per game, and she was the closest thing to Richard Hamilton I think I've ever seen at UCF with that mid-range jumper that was just deadly. She also averaged almost 4 rebounds per game, 59 assists, which was 3rd on the team, 54 steals, which was 3rd on the team. She just did it all. And what a breakout year she had for Coach Abe in UCF women's basketball.
Really turned it on in conference, too. She was the leading scorer because, going into the year, one of the questions with women's basketball, was where's the scoring coming from? You had Zy Lewis, and then we didn't know where else. And Gregory took it to a next level to the point where she became the number 1 option. I think she averaged around close to 20 points a game during conference play, earning all conference. And she was on a torrid pace during conference. Phenomenal year and a big part of, the turnaround with that program.
Yeah. So those are your 5 nominees for Female Athlete of the Year. Anne-Marie Blaney from track and cross country, Jayla Hervey from volleyball, Carol Rodriguez, women's soccer, Ashley Holder, women's golf, and Aaliyah Gregory from women's basketball. All right, Lopez, who you got?
How come I get to go first all the time? That's not fair. You go first this time.
I'll go first. All right. This is such a hard choice, but I'm going with Anne-Marie Blaney because she did what she was able to do, not just consistently throughout her career, but basically in 2 different sports between cross country and track. She was utterly dominant in that sport. And if we're looking for who's the best athlete of the year, I like to. My first question is, who was the most dominant in her sport? And due respect to the other 4 nominees, I think Anne Marie was the most dominant, probably the most dominant individual UCF athlete in any sport this year. What about you?
Strong argument. I mean, I don't disagree with a word you just said. Let me make a case for Ashley Holder.
Okay.
She won the individual championship, helped win the team championship at the same time, right? Like, it came down to the wire for the women's team championship, and she was a big part of that. She made the NCAAs. You mentioned other great players in UCF women's golf have never won the individual conference championships, making the NCAAs. That's a pretty, I mean, does UCF women's golf win the team championship without Ashley Holder? That would be my argument there, but man, I can't, I mean, Blaney was just dominant.
Yeah.
That was my, I feel bad. That's my argument for Holder, but I can't disagree with your choice of Blaney there at all.
All right. So remember, you can, of course, vote for who you think should win that award. On blackandgoldbanneret.com and at our Twitter handle, UCF_Banneret. This one's going to be fun, this next one. Coach of the Year. All right. Boy, did we have a lot of nominees for this one. I tried to keep it down to 5 nominees per award. All right.
Yep.
This one was hard because we could have had 7 or 8, considering, and that sort of gives you an idea of, again, we've waxed poetic many a time on this show about Danny White and the job he's done in hiring coaches. But let's go ahead and go through our nominees. First of all, we've got both basketball coaches, Greg Lovelady, the baseball coach, Emily Marin from women's golf, and John Roddick. Let's start with Johnny Dawkins. Johnny taking UCF all the way to Madison Square Garden in his first season. And, there were some grumblings when Johnny got hired, considering, how it finished off in Stanford. But, boy, did he get his players, like we said earlier when we were talking about Matt Williams, to buy in a hurry. And they finished 24-12. They go to Madison Square Garden, 11-7 in the league, 15-3 at home. Got to the final of the Gildan Charleston Classic back in the beginning of the season. Remember that? That was when we thought, okay, we might have a little something here. And got the team through a little dry patch. There was a part where they lost 6 out of 7 in conference. They had lost to Cincinnati, and then down the stretch, they win their last 5 in the conference, including knocking off number 15 Cincinnati, including beating USF in the regular season final. They lose to number 12 SMU in the AAC tournament semis. But then they go on that NIT run before it finally comes to an end in Madison Square Garden at the hands of TCU. Johnny Dawkins, man, boy, that's going to be a tough one to beat.
Phenomenal turnaround, and to the point now where maybe we're headed for one of the most anticipated basketball seasons, if not the most anticipated basketball season of all time.
He put UCF basketball back on the map on campus.
There's no question about that. And as we'll get into this later, I mean, I think he's now the face of UCF athletics at this moment. In particular, not only what the production as far as on the court with the team, but just the way he conducted himself. And I think the way I think he reached a lot of people that maybe weren't either basketball fans or that haven't been for whatever reasons, and that now all of a sudden are invested and interested again. Unbelievable.
You know who else did an unbelievable job? His counterpart on the women's side, Katie Abrahamson Henderson. Coach Abe, her team finished with 20 wins this season, 21-12 overall, 11-6 at home, 9-7 in the league. Got off to a hot start. Started out 6-1. Their only loss at home to Virginia Tech by 3 in that stretch. They lost by 1 point to Buffalo. Boy, as we headed towards New Year's, they only had 2 losses on the schedule. They lost to UConn to start off the conference season, but I thought played them as hard as any other team played them in the conference schedule. At one point, the Knights won 6 in a row down the stretch. They get to the conference tournament where they were stopped by UConn, but did get to the WNIT where they defeated Stetson by 20 in the first round before losing in Atlanta to Georgia Tech. But what a year that she had. And really, you could argue, Johnny Dawkins, had a he was able to put together, he had talent coming back for that team, right? Coach Abe had to piece this thing together. And to win 21 games in your first season in the American when you're facing the likes of UConn, they didn't exactly have an easy out of conference schedule either. Deserves a ton of credit. And I think UCF women's basketball is set up now to be a real challenger in the next few years under Coach Abe. What do you think?
Pretty amazing going to the NIT, WNIT, win over 20 games, going from single-digit wins to 20 wins over 20 wins in a 1 year, with a roster that has limitations. I mean, you could make the argument there was really only 2 scorers on that team, with Lewis and Gregory stepping up, and of course you had great size inside. I thought she did a tremendous job on that along with her staff, and pretty remarkable now. And it really makes you wonder what she's going to do once she gets her players into this program.
Yeah, an amazing job by Coach Abe. Another newcomer, head baseball coach Greg Lovelady. What a year for him in his first year. 40-22, 15-9 in the conference, in a much improved American Athletic Conference, by the way. Much improved. Won 29 of 39 at home. Got off to a hot start. A couple wins over some marquee opponents. Defeated Florida 11-2 at home, and got to the American Athletic title. Won the American regular season title. It won a couple games in the American Championship before they fell to this East Carolina team that just got hot at the right time. But wow, and then made it to the NCAA Tallahassee Regional. The season didn't end the way that I'm sure he would have liked. But, again, I keep thinking back to that press conference at the end, after the Florida State game when they bowed out, and you saw the emotion from Greg Lovelady, and you could tell how much he put in with this team and how much, he loved the guys and they loved him back. And that, to me, is a real signal from the players about their coach and the job that he did, because the baseball program, I thought, was really directionless heading into, after last season. And he comes in, gives them direction, gives them agency, and look what they did, 40 games in his first year.
And you could say that that's the common theme, right, with all these coaches, is they came in and they kind of were able to get players that were not necessarily theirs, but they basically took them as theirs, and the players bought in. And I think that's a big key. I think Lovelady, what a phenomenal job he did on a team that really, I question how talented this team really was. I think they overachieved. And they won the regular season championship for a league, as you mentioned, is underrated. This is a top 5 conference when it comes to college baseball. In the American Conference, you beat USF, your rival, to do it. You get back to the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2012 for this program.
Yeah.
And just phenomenal with limited bats that we've talked about on this podcast. With we had Trace on recently, and I still think they were very limited offensively. And then maximizing what you have on your roster. And I know you've mentioned this many a times, and I'll let you do it again. The pitching staff among the top 5, top 10 throughout the year in pitching, and that gives a credit to Lovelady and a credit to his staff too.
Yeah, what a year for him, and put UCF baseball back on the map in the same way that Johnny Dawkins put UCF men's basketball back on the map. Emily Marin of women's golf, another nominee. The Knights win the American Championship this year once again under her direction. They get to the Athens Regional, And what again, we thought that, golf and tennis are the sports where UCF are kind of the sports of the future for UCF. Emily Marin's already there. And what a fun time it was talking to her earlier this year on the show. And what a job that her team did in a very tough sport, to get them ready at the right time with the American Championship there. And now she's won 3, or I think it's 2 of the last 3 in terms of women's golf. What a job she did with that team, huh?
Pretty dramatic. Do we take partial credit since she was on the podcast, some good karma for being on the podcast? Can we sell that?
Remember, she was on with us after they won the tournament. So
we didn't have to go into detail, but
I wanted to get her back, in there for a preseason interview too. But yeah,
sure.
Go ahead.
No, she did a great job and very dramatic to win that American Conference Championship, get to the NCAA tournament, and and producing tremendous talent too. I mean, that's the thing for players and just a phenomenal job, and really on top of her game right now is Emily Marin.
And then finally, for men's tennis, another newcomer, John Roddick, highly touted. Eric, I know you've been looking forward to this one.
Yep.
I'll just let you take it away on John, because I know how much of a big fan you are of college tennis and the job that he did at Oklahoma, and how excited you were when he came on board.
Unbelievable. I mean, this was the biggest story going into the year was Danny White. You talk about what Danny White and the job he's done with all these hires. And I think the one that really might, certainly, the Johnny Dawkins, it was mainstream. It's a mainstream hire. It's a big hire. Wow. Scott Frost, big hire. Wow. Katie Aberson, maybe a little under the radar because she was coaching at Albany in women's basketball. But think about what Danny White pulled off here in hiring John Roddick away from Oklahoma, a Power 5 school, a program that had just played for the national championship the previous 2 years. And he takes Roddick and brings him in here with high expectation. A tennis program that you've covered hadn't made the NCAA tournament in tennis since 2005, I believe.
Yeah, it's a long time.
And they're building the new USTA Center, new home, but there's pressure with that. And you're thinking, oh, well, that's good. He's in here, and I got a chance to talk to him. We had him on before the year, exclusive interview.
Yep.
And we're like, well, how quickly can he, it may take him a year or two. Boom. They're within one match away. They're in the championship, in the American Conference Championship match, 1 win away from winning the conference title.
And they finished in the top 30 in the ITA at the end of the season, heading into the NCAAs. They go to the NCAAs. He has an individual player in the NCAAs. Even though they bowed out in the first round against Louisville, still to get where they did so quickly, remarkable.
Amazing. And I was told recently when I was that he's got one of the best recruiting classes in the country coming in for next season. Yeah. And again, I've made this statement on this podcast numerous times, Jeff, going back to when I first interviewed him. John Roddick will bring a national championship to UCF tennis. I believe it. I think UCF's going to be a national title contender. He's turned this program in a year from just another program, a tennis program, to a national program. And that's what's exciting. I think the better days are ahead, but just unbelievable on the quick turnaround just to get him back, just to get him to the NCAA tournament this year. Phenomenal.
All right, so there's your Coach of the Year nominees.
By the way, that is an amazing list.
Oh.
And we didn't, and not even included on the list is, first of all, Becky Kramer. Can we give a shout out to Becky Kramer?
I wanted
to. Heroic.
I gotta give a shout out to Becky, and I'm sorry. I mean, we had to. There are 3 more.
Jeff left you out, Becky. Jeff left you out.
We had cuts to make because we could only have 5 because of the poll. Becky, Scott Frost is not on this list. Got UCF to a bowl game, 6 wins after an 0-12
Going from 0 wins, from 0 wins to 6 wins. That's pretty wild.
I mean, it's hard. It's hard, man. But Bryce Waller, men's golf. I mean, oh man.
Is this the greatest year?
Tiffany Roberts-Sahadak, for crying out loud! What a job that she did this year too. This is one of the best coaching years I think maybe in UCF history. I think you're right.
I think it might be the best overall. We just named. With Frost, Bryce Waller, you mentioned, with Beck. I mean, that's That's 8 right there. Heck, Linda Gooch, again, competing for national championship cheerleading. We haven't even mentioned her. I mean, it's just kind of crazy. Crazy list. Just an amazing, wow, this was unbelievable. And again, a credit to Danny White because he brought most of them in.
Yeah, that's right. So
maybe he should present this award. I don't know.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a short break, and then we've got a bunch of awards that we've got to get to, and we're already, like 50 minutes into this one, 45 minutes
Well, we got to wait. And we got to pick this award.
We got to pick our Coach of the Year. Okay. So do you want to go first? You go first. I went first the last time.
All right. I will go, and I can't believe this was down and literally down to the wire. But I'm gonna surprise some of you. I'm gonna go Greg Lovelady here, and I'm gonna tell you why. This was a team that was picked last before the year in the conference. This was a team that, returning. We didn't think there was a lot of talent in this roster, especially on the offensive side. Overachieved pitching wise, found a bullpen. Led them to their first regular season conference championship in this program since 2004, Jeff. 2004.
Yeah.
When they were in the A-Sun. You were in school back then in calling those games.
So
That's how long. Yeah. That's how long ago. You weren't even married. I don't even know if you've met your wife at that point.
No,
and if you did,
at that point, yeah.
So tells you how long it was.
Yeah.
And he gets them back into the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2012. For those who say, oh, it should be easy to get. No, this program hadn't been to the NCAA tournament in 2012. So I'm going to go with Greg Lovelady by a hair because he led them a regular season championship in a top 5 league, by the way. This was not a cakewalk league at all. It's a top 5 league in the American Conference where they were picked last and got them in the NCAA tournament. Phenomenal.
I'm going to go with your boy, John Roddick, because no one was really taking UCF tennis, aside from the people who were in the building. No one was taking UCF tennis seriously prior to him showing up. The fact that what he's done with the men's team is remarkable. He's also the director of tennis, remember. So he's in charge of both the men's and the women's teams. We're seeing the improvement on the women's side as well. And I really do believe that UCF will be a national title contender. You had said that you believe that UCF will win a national title. I'm not willing to go out on that limb simply because it is so hard to win a national title in any sport. Quite often when you get to that level, it's a flip of the coin. But I'll tell you something. The future is bright for John Roddick. What he has done to this program has turned it around in the right direction and turned it from an afterthought into a national threat. And that, I think, in 1 year he did that. And I think that speaks a lot to his ability. So remember, you can vote on all these awards. We've got a whole bunch to go to after the break. Go to UCF_Banneret on Twitter. Go to blackandgoldbanneret.com. Go to facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret. Click on the page. Vote for the awards. And in 1 week, we'll have our actual award show where we put the results out there. So we got a lot to get to still. We're going to take a short break. We got Team of the Year, Comeback Athlete of the Year, Breakout Athlete of the Year, Newcomer, Game of the Year, Play of the Year, Moment of the Year, Performance of the Year. A lot of stuff to do here on the Black and Gold Banneret award nomination show. Stick around. We're right back after this.
Hello, Night Nation. I'm Andrew Fegley.
And I'm Trey Strelko. Where are we? This isn't our usual spot.
It looks like we've landed in the Black and Gold Banneret podcast.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of those guys.
You know, Nightline has UCF sports covered.
Week in and week out, we bring you interviews with newsmakers and in-depth analysis of UCF sports.
Subscribe to our weekly podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Be sure to subscribe to Nightline on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter at UCF_Nightline.
Trace, can we go back to the 1148 studios now and start working on our next all-new Nightline?
How do we get out of here? Go Knights!
Charge on.
Now back to you guys in the Black and Gold Banneret podcast.
And welcome back to our nomination show for the, what do they call it with the Oscars? The Oscar nominations come out, right? So these are the Banny nominations. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez with you here on Black and Gold Banneret podcast. We gave you Male Athlete of the Year, Female Athlete of the Year, Coach of the Year. We're going to blast through the rest of these. I'm just going to name them off one by one, and then we'll name off our picks. But you guys pretty much should know, if you've been following us throughout the year, you've been following UCF athletics, you know the stories that are coming out here about these. So, all right, we're gonna do Team of the Year last. Okay, I'm gonna come back to that in a little bit. Let's go with Comeback Athlete of the Year. So the rest of these individual awards, we threw together the women and the men. Comeback Athlete of the Year. I got Kia Bright from volleyball, who came back after a devastating knee injury. One of the team leaders, once again, she'll be back next year. Jason Barr, who our boy Brian Murphy did a write-up on earlier this year, and he got drafted in the Major League Baseball draft. Jason Barr, who couldn't make the team twice under Terry Rooney, was a key player for UCF baseball this year under Greg Lovelady on the pitcher's mound. B.J. Taylor, who missed all of last year with a foot injury. People were doubting whether or not he'd be able to come back for UCF men's basketball. He ended up leading the team in scoring. His future looks bright as well. Jordan Akins, who I watched that knee injury against Furman. It happened literally right in front of me in the stands, and I thought, and I was just sick to my stomach when I saw it. But he came back, and he may be very well set up for. Had a pretty good year this year, and he may very well be set up for a very good year in 2017 as well. And then Kyle Marsh for baseball, back from surgery last year, put together another outstanding, put together a very good season coming back for UCF baseball. Comeback Athlete of the Year, Lopez, who you got?
That's a tough one, right? I mean, there are a lot of compelling arguments, but I'm going to go with B.J. Taylor. It was a serious knee injury, missed the entire year. And just because he came back, we didn't know how good he was going to be. Was he going to be able to stay healthy? Was he still going to be, explosive? A lot of questions. And he answered most of it. He stayed healthy for the most part. He got hurt when he injured his hand during the non-conference portion of the schedule. He missed some games, but he was healthy, and he was their big playmaker to come back and really be one of the leaders on this team. And I don't know if UCF basketball succeeds without B.J. Taylor, because really, think about it, they didn't really have a true point guard behind them this year. So yeah, it was important for him to stay on the court, and he did, and he produced in a big way. And so I would go with him with a slight edge over Jason Barr, which is a phenomenal story for him as well. But great choices here. B.J.
Taylor would make a great choice. You know who I think is a better choice? Kia Bright, UCF women's volleyball. Oh. Here's why. Kia, her knee was a mess. She was out there with one of those massive knee braces. And you talk about somebody who, Todd Dagenet talked to me about this, about her leaping ability, right? She could, standing still underneath the basket, dunk a ball with two hands. That's the kind of ability she had. Then she has the injury, right? You think a knee injury, a devastating knee injury like that would be catastrophic for a player who relies on her athletic ability, as she did. Well, guess what she did in her first year back after messing up her knee? Second on the team in kills. Second on the team in points per set. Second on the team in digs per set. So she was this outstanding two-way player for Todd Dagenet and the volleyball team. And now she's going to be back this year with, like you said, it usually takes you a couple, really like 18 months to come back from the kind of injury that she had. And here she is, primed and ready to be, I think, an all-conference performer. So my vote goes to Kia Bright for Comeback Athlete of the Year. Breakout Athlete of the Year. This is an athlete who, may have been with UCF for a year or two before, but all of a sudden just burst onto the scene in some way. And it's the kind of player who has a season where you're like, wow, we did not see this one coming. So here we go. Aaliyah Gregory, women's basketball, speaks for itself. She was one of our nominees for Female Athlete of the Year. Shaquem Griffin, one of our Male Athlete of the Year nominees. Shaquem, obviously Defensive Player of the Year for in the American. Corey Lovett of men's tennis, who came, who was UCF's lone individual performer in the NCAA tennis tournament. Cassidy Brewer for softball. What a year she had, coming in for UCF. Once she was solidified behind the plate and with the bat, boy, did her bat heat up this year for UCF softball. And Matthias Puzzolo for men's soccer, who had a breakout year also for Brian Cunningham's team. And we talked about the offensive load that he carried. Breakout player of the year. I'm going to go first here, Eric, and I'm going to take Aaliyah Gregory. I think she's a shoo-in for this award. I remember distinctly the press conference where Coach Abe, I forget what game it was, but she said, when she was looking at the roster and everyone who came in, when she first came in, said, Coach, Zy Lewis is kind of the best player on your team. And due respect to Zy. And then Coach Abe said, yeah, Zy's really good, but, this Aaliyah Gregory, she's really good. You guys are sure that she's not, that she might not be the top, the top talent around here? And boy, did she prove it this year, leading the team in scoring and just doing it all offensively and defensively for UCF women's basketball en route to a 20-win season. What about you, Eric?
For the first time, I think, in this podcast, I think we agree. I agree. And let's not forget some of the performances that she had. How about going back home to Tampa against USF and putting on a show and helping knock off the Bulls, a team you've seen up close? What a performance she had. One of the great performances, one of the great years, earning herself an all-conference first team in the American Conference, a great league, and helping them get to the NIT. And to me, I'm intrigued to see what she will do here next season and maybe put herself in the conversation, maybe if she continues to improve how she has, to be one of the greatest women's basketball players in the history of UCF basketball.
Yeah, she had 34 points in that game against USF. She had that stretch where she was just making everything and really helped put UCF over the hump in the Americans. So there's your breakout players of the year. Newcomer of the year. Now, this is not necessarily a freshman. This could be somebody who transferred over. We got 5 good nominees here. Boy, this one's tough. Rylan Thomas for baseball, who was a revelation for UCF, especially with the bat. Joe Sheridan, excellent pitcher for UCF, the lefty, who came up with a number of came up big in a number of big moments for UCF. This one, of course, we're going to go here. Mackenzie Milton, the quarterback for UCF football, who is the pioneer of bringing a new style of football to UCF in 2016 and 2017 under Scott Frost. Maria Balcazar, a real unheralded newcomer for women's golf. We talked about Ashley Holder. Maria Balcazar had one heck of a year this year. And then Aaliyah White for softball, who's become UCF's ace and might be on pace to be, to take a number of UCF softball pitching records when all is said and done after 4 seasons at UCF. Eric, you're going to go first on this one.
Well, it's tough, this one, but I and I'll be accused of being a homer on this one since I do call her games. But I'm going to go with I'm going Aaliyah White, and the reason I go with Aaliyah White, look, the UCF had graduated, not arguably, actually, she is the most decorated pitcher in the history of the program, in Shelby Turnier, who went on to the NPF and won an NPF championship. They also graduated the number 2 pitcher on that staff, Jamie Uvari, from last year. So going into the season in 2017, I think UCF only returned 60 innings of experience pitching, which was from Manemi Calixto. So you had Manemi Calixto coming in with 3 freshman pitchers, and you're like, where is the pitching going to come from? Is someone going to step up? How is this team going to do pitching wise? There's a lot of questions. And Aaliyah White, a true freshman, just, I think, considering what she, having a young team behind her and everything, really stepped up and had a tremendous year as a freshman. Really, other than Mackenzie Otis in 2012, there's no other freshman pitcher that's ever had a year than Aaliyah White. When you consider she was among the nation's leaders in wins, she went 18 wins this year. 18 wins. To put that in perspective, UCF won 29 for the season. She made second team all-conference. She should have won Rookie of the Year in the American Conference, didn't. But to me, Aaliyah White, if Aaliyah White doesn't have the year that she does, I don't know, Jeff, honestly, where UCF softball season would have ended. They would have struggled because, with young pitching, you just don't know. You just never know how they're going to respond. Some of them take a little while to develop, and there's certainly room for improvement for her, for sure. And I think she will be the first to say that. But I have to go with her because in a lot of ways, she was a big part of their success. And you were there when she shut out USF in front of a national television audience on ESPNU. You were there when she pitched against then number 1 ranked Florida State in front of a sold-out crowd at the complex, the third largest crowd ever. And she, an offense that was just run-rolling people at the time, was averaging over 8 runs a game. And you can make an argument she was maybe a defensive play away from shutting them out going into the 7th inning of that game. So, I would go with her as the newcomer of the year.
You make a strong case. I had a hard time choosing between Aaliyah and Rylan Thomas. I'm going to go with Rylan, and here's why. Rylan Thomas comes in as a freshman. He starts 59 games. He hits .303. He's third on the team. Just 12 percentage points behind the leader. He leads the team with home runs with 14. He leads the team in RBI with 53. Tops in total bases 124. Tops in slugging at .530. And then in addition to that, as a pitcher this year, he makes 7 appearances, goes 1-0, and doesn't give up a run. Now you might say, well, he only pitched 8 innings. I don't care. He gave up only 3 hits. He walked only 4 guys, struck out 10. He was as dominant on the hill in his brief amount of time as he was with the bat, having started 59 games. So I'm going to go with Rylan Thomas for UCF baseball. All right,
it's a good choice. Good choice. Let me paraphrase this. The people that we don't pick, there's no wrong choices here. Let's just make that record.
Right. And that's why you, the fan, the listener, are going to be making those choices. So that's why, and it's an online poll. We're just making our picks, and you guys are going to have to make the decision yourselves. All right? So good luck with that. Let's do, all right, next up, Game of the Year. All right, so we got 4, individual event sort of awards here. We got Game of the Year, Play of the Year, Moment of the Year, and Performance of the Year. The Game of the Year is basically the one single event that was just a remarkable, just the quality of the game itself. It's like one that you would want to record and watch on your DVR. I almost said your VCR. Can you believe that? But because that's what we used to do, right? So, all right. So we'll start with men's golf winning the NCAA Murfreesboro Regional. First time the UCF's done that in a long time. Bryce Waller and UCF making their way to the NCAA final with that. Women's golf winning the American Athletic Conference tournament in dramatic fashion, coming down to the final hole, and then also and then in addition to that, you get Ashley Holder winning the individual title at the same time, clinching it on the final hole. Women's basketball upsetting number 22 USF in Tampa, in a game where we talked about Aaliyah Gregory, where she had another amazing performance in that stretch, and UCF knocks off what I thought was going to be next to UConn was an almost impossible to beat USF team that I had seen in the Sun Dome, and UCF knocks them off with a great defensive performance. Men's basketball, a bunch of games that we could have chosen from this one, but we chose the Knights shocking Illinois State in the NIT up at Illinois. They were ready for Illinois in the next round. They were going to host that game. Illinois State, the 1 seed in the Knights side of the bracket, the NIT, and the Knights go up there and spoil the party and get to host one more game against Illinois, which they eventually went on to win. More on that in a little bit because that's one of our nominees for one of the later awards. But we chose just that individual game was just an amazing dramatic game. I think drama has to count for this. And then speaking of drama, baseball in extra innings up in East Carolina. This was back. I'm actually pulling it up on the schedule right now. This was back on April the 13th, and the Knights had just gotten swept by USF, and then they lost to Florida Atlantic. Then they got to go on the road to Greenville, and this is at a time before ECU really kind of ECU had a rough year this year, but remember they were coming as the one of the preseason favorites in the American, and the Knights were down in this game big early. They were down. I'm looking at 7-1 heading into the fifth inning, and then they just chipped away and chipped away. Rylan Thomas with a 2 RBI single that tied the game in the ninth. That went to the end. It went to the 11th. Brennan Bozeman with the single, and the Knights come back from 7-1 down in the fifth to win 8-7 in extra innings over East Carolina, and that started. I think that really ignited UCF's run in baseball this year to 40 wins. I mean, we knew they did get off to a pretty good start, but they were kind of not quite figuring it out, and that was the game where all of a sudden they kicked it into the fifth gear. So those 5 games, Eric, which one you got?
I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but this was a hard one to pick. And honestly, I've gotten back and forth on this because on the one hand, I thought about for 1 minute, well, maybe I'm going to go with the UCF women's basketball upset win over USF. Think about it. It was the first time ever that UCF women's basketball has beaten USF in the Division I era.
Yeah.
They haven't beaten them since 1980. It's been a long time. Then I thought about the women's golf. Winning the conference championship on the final hole. I mean, how dramatic is that? And winning an individual championship at the same time, right around the same time with Holder. So I thought about going with that. But the more I thought about it, I have to go with the UCF Illinois State game. Because, first of all, the atmosphere at Illinois State was tremendous. Johnny Dawkins even said, Jeff, it was one of the best atmospheres he's ever been a part of as far as being on the road. Against an Illinois State team that, that's a tough, great home court. UCF digs themselves a huge hole, and they come all the way back, win in a wild fashion. And it was at that moment, after they won the game, you realized, wait a minute, we're going to host an NIT game with a chance to go to the Final Four. That's a game I think a lot of people will always remember. So I'm going to go with UCF over Illinois State as the game of the year.
I am going to go with women's basketball beating USF. And the reason why was for the reasons that you actually elucidated. UCF had not beaten USF in the Division I era, had not beaten USF in Tampa in the Division I era. And USF, I'd seen them actually, I think was it the week or two before when they played Cincinnati. And I'm looking at this game, at this team, and I'm like, man, if it wasn't for UConn, this team would be running away with this conference, and just their style of play was like, I was honestly scared. I was like, man, this is going to be a problem. And then all of a sudden, Coach Abe's team comes in. They are not afraid of them one bit. They shut them down defensively. They keep them from running. And then they get that performance from Aaliyah Gregory, and the Knights upset then number 22 USF in Tampa on their floor in the Sundome. That gets my game of the year. All right, play of the year. This is a little tougher, all right, because we're talking about individual plays that were really just remarkable. Adrian Killen's 100-plus yard kick return versus East Carolina. Ask LSU dad about that. This was a good one. UCF softball's triple play against Memphis, the first triple play in school history. That made the SportsCenter top 10. Speaking of SportsCenter top 10s, Kyle Marsh, his diving catch against USF on national television in the final game of the 3-game series at home, the game that clinched the American Athletic Conference regular season title. What a key play that was. Brennan Bozeman of UCF baseball with that leap over Jason Santana of Memphis, the catcher. That one made the SportsCenter top 10. And then one more, Ashley Holder's putt on the final hole to win both the team and the individual American Athletic Conference championship and clinch the first ever War on I-4 All Sports trophy in one shot. So, five plays right there, Eric Lopez. Which one you got?
Wow.
This is
That is
hard,
pretty
man. Could you imagine?
Actually, wait a minute. Now you said that Holder. Now I'm thinking I want to go back to the women's golf and make that the game of the year now. See what I mean? I'm having a hard time. I mean, that was pretty good. I'm going to switch my vote. I'm going women's golf. That was pretty good.
So you're going women's golf for, you're going women's golf for game of the year?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was good. You sold that good. I haven't punched my ticket yet. I haven't punched my vote. That was unbelievable. That's unbelievable. Clinch the conference championship, the individual championship, and the all trophy. I got to go with that. That was well done. That was well done. I've told you that was a hard one. This one, though, I'm a little more. I have more backbone on this one. I will not flip flop on this one. I'm going to go with the triple play.
Okay.
Against Memphis, and this is why the game.
Tell me why you're not a homer about this one.
Well, I wasn't there, first of all, so it's not like I could say I was there. In fact, it's probably going to be one of my regrets in my career that I wasn't there. But here's the deal. That was a game. That was a wild game. It was the third game of the series. Memphis had won the first game easily. UCF came back, won the second game. And then the third game, it was a wild shootout. And UCF jumped out of 10. I think they had like a 10-3 lead, 10-4 lead at one point. And Memphis is making a run in the seventh inning, bottom of the seventh. They get 2 runs right, boom, boom, boom. They got the bases loaded, nobody out. There's a pitching change, multiple pitching changes in the inning. So it's 10-6, nobody out. Memphis with all the momentum. And they hit the fly ball to Greenwell, who doesn't have the best arm of the 3 outfielders. It's not like Willow Callanan, who has a tremendous arm in right field. She makes a perfect throw to center field to get the runner out at home plate for the second out. And then they hit the third base for the triple play to end the game and kill the momentum and win the series. It was an amazing moment. I don't know if they turn that triple play. Who knows what happens in that game? Who knows if they hold on to that lead? Because Memphis was coming. They had momentum in that bottom of the seventh, and that just took it out completely. And it's a moment that's probably going to be the most memorable play of the 2017 year. I think when you ask any of those players on the 2017 team, what do you remember most about the 2017 season? They're going to tell you that's going to be that play. So it was, I believe it was top 3, top 4, top 10 play in Sports Center that night. It made the ESPNW top plays. And it's the first in the history of the program. Who knows if we'll ever see a triple play again? It's not like it's guaranteed to happen again. The other stuff, were great plays, but we've seen those type of plays before. I don't know if we'll ever see another triple play. And so that's my vote.
I'm going to go with Ashley Holder's putt because I talked with Coach Marin about that, and it's just, the job that she's done, just getting, preparing for that moment. And in one shot on that 54th hole, she clinches the team title. She clinches the individual title after 3 years of finishing in the top 3 and not coming up with the individual. She clinches the individual. And she clinches the War on I-4 All-Sports Trophy for UCF in one shot up in Palm Coast. What a moment that was. So much riding on that, so much pressure, and she came through. That, to me, is the play of the year. It was a tough choice for me between that one and the Adrian Killen's kick return, because the kick return was, not just the coming out party for Adrian, but I thought a coming out party for UCF football, where all of a sudden we stood up and said, whoa, this is what we're going to be seeing now. And that was a tough call, but I'm going to go with Ashley Holder's putt to clinch the American. Now, along those lines, we're going to do moment of the year. So this may not necessarily be a game or a play, but just a general moment that just really made us stand up and applaud for UCF. Here's what we've got. Baseball, clinching the American at home against USF in a winner-take-the-title in a winner-take-the-title game. They clinched a share of the American, by the way, with Houston, but to do so against USF at home on the final day of the regular season. Basketball, Zy Lewis, who has been through so much in her career at UCF, became UCF's all-time leader in threes by either a male or a female basketball player. Rowing, sweeping every race at the American Athletic Conference Championships in Sarasota. men's basketball defeating Illinois at home in front of 10,000 people to go to the NIT semis in New York. And then men's tennis defeating number 23 Texas Tech 4-3 in their first ever match at the USTA Center, their first ever team match under John Roddick. Those five, so many moments to choose from. We tried to be diplomatic about it, and maybe some that would have counted as moments we put to play of the year or game of the year, or
Sure.
our next one, performance of the year. But moments of the year, I think we got five really good ones. I'm going to go first, and I think we're going to agree on this one. I'm picking, due respect to everybody on the other. I'm picking the men's basketball game against Illinois. When you consider, Eric, that when we came to UCF, we were happy when we got 2,500 people in the arena for men's basketball. We were back in the days when we were in the A-Sun, right? And we were coming back from softball. We walked over together to the arena after softball was over, and to walk in and see standing room only, essentially in UCF Arena, 10,011 people. It was loud. It was crazy. It was against Illinois, Big Ten opponent. It was definitely going to be our last game of the year. It was because the next game would have been the NIT semis, heading to New York, trip to New York City on the line, Madison Square Garden, and all that. And it was a taste. It was finally, we've been looking for that. Those of us who follow UCF basketball and love UCF basketball always knew that if we ever got a crowd like that, like you get at the Dukes and the North Carolinas and the Villanovas and the Kansases, that crowd can will a team to victory. And I thought that was what happened in that Illinois game. And after the game, Johnny Dawkins making the speech up top, holding the apple, and we were right there, right behind him. The crowd rushes the floor, and he's up there, and he is the preacher, giving everyone the good news about UCF basketball. I mean, I get kind of misty just thinking about it. So that due respect to everything else, but man, that game, that night, I will never forget that so long as I live.
Ditto. And I'll go a step further. I think the moment with Johnny Dawkins with the fans on the court is maybe the most iconic moment UCF athletics on campus that I can remember. Prior to that, I would have probably have said, I think back to 2005, back at the old Citrus Bowl when UCF finally ended that long losing streak in football and they beat Marshall and the fans stormed the field and they grabbed the goalpost and then the word just spread out. Everybody took the goalpost to the pond on campus, and that was a pretty awesome moment as a student. But this moment, you had the students, you had the fan base, the booster, and Johnny Dawkins is around them, and he's telling them how appreciative he is of the support. At that moment, how can you not be sucked in? I mean, it was unbelievable. And that's why I've said, I think Johnny Dawkins right now is the face of UCF athletics, because I think every fan, whether you're a diehard basketball fan, whether you're a casual basketball fan, you can identify with Johnny Dawkins and you're going to root for Johnny Dawkins, in a lot of ways, kind of similar to what it was when Kirk Sparrow was the coach, but now it's with higher expectations, maybe even. That was just an amazing moment. You mentioned that walking in that building when that arena is packed and loud. It was, you and I were sitting next to each other. We just kept smiling and looking at each other like, you believe it? Yeah. And I remember because you thought, you had some commitments you had to do. So you weren't necessarily planning on staying for the game. But when you walked in, you're like, hey, I got to stay for this.
Yeah,
you just wanted to take a peek, and you were sucked in. You had like, nope, I got to stay.
I couldn't say. I said, if I leave, I'm going to regret this the rest of my life. And
you were shocked.
Yeah.
Because you and I heard about it. We heard the whispers. Oh yeah, no, this is going to be close to a sellout. Oh, it's going to. And we were like, yeah, okay, yeah, seriously, yeah.
We've heard that before.
Yeah, right. Come on. Yeah, I don't buy it. I'm not buying it. We both walked in together and we looked and we're like, oh my God.
And it really was so loud. I'm like, wow, that's what, like, I've never been to a place like Cameron Indoor Stadium or, the Dean Dome. I've been to Little John Coliseum, Clemson's home gym for when they play Duke or Carolina. But, I was like, wow, this is what it's like. Like, this is what it's like, right? And amazing. I think we have to agree on that one. Moment of the year.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Performance of the year, and then we have team of the year we're going to finish up with. So performance of the year. This is not necessarily the game of the year or the moment of the year. This is an individual athlete who just was at the peak of their performance, was in a zone for a game, a series, a stretch of whatever. We'll start with Rylan Thomas in his 3 games against Central Michigan, that 3-game series. Thomas went 8 for 11 at the plate, 4 home runs, 12 runs batted in, and he got his first career pitching win in the 3rd game of the series on a walk-off RBI single by Eli Putnam. Matt Williams against USF at home. 38 points and a record 11 3-pointers. That's when I thought that was the night when, some of these NBA teams that are looking at Matt right now, I thought that was when they sat up and take notice. Said, wow, this kid made 11 threes in a game. We got to take a look at this. Cassidy Brewer, senior day for UCF softball this year. She knocks out 2 home runs, picks up 6 runs batted in, including one of those home runs, a walk-off grand slam to finish up the regular season at home on senior day, send the seniors off with a victory in their final game on the UCF Diamond. We talked about her before. Ashley Holder, once again, to finish 7 under par in the American Athletic Conference Women's Golf Championship. Finished in the top 3 all 3 previous years. Finally breaks through, wins the tournament outright with that dramatic putt that I put down as my play of the year. And then finally, another softball moment. Linnea Goodman, win at Memphis. You talk about the triple play at Memphis. Let us not forget Linnea setting a new school record, 5 hits in 1 game against Memphis. So what do you got, Eric?
It's pretty crazy that Memphis game didn't get nominated. Now I look back on it. Wow, we had a school record, 5 hits for Linnea Goodman and a triple play to end the game. That's pretty wild. By the way, the Brewer, a note, 6 RBIs, second most, tied for the second most RBIs in a single game by any UCF softball player.
Behind Stephanie Betts. Yep.
Who had this, only the school.
Who had like 168 of them in that one game against Army.
Or to be closer to accuracy, 11, which is still the NCAA record, by the way.
Felt like 168. But anyway.
I'm sure Army did that too. All great performances. I got to go with Matt Williams. I was there in that building. I watched that game inside there. There's nothing like watching a basketball player putting on a show from the 3-point line. And certainly, in the NBA, I've been fortunate. I've seen Steph Curry do it in person. Twice, with the Warriors against the Magic. And there's something about a player, and it was the same way with Matt Williams in that game against USF, because anytime he touched the ball, after he made the first 3 or 4, you're like, whoa, we're in for something. It was almost like anticipation when he touched the ball. You're like, ooh, he could shoot it from anywhere on the court. And then you're catching your breath and are like, oh, can you just believe he hit it from there? And it was just an unbelievable show that he put on. It's one of the greatest performances in the history of any player in UCF basketball history. Certainly Jermaine Taylor and some of his performances that he threw out his career. I'll never forget, certainly a game against Rice where he had over 40 points and all that, put on some shows. But other than that, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a better performance than what Matt Williams did. He stole the show. It was unbelievable. School record for most threes in a game, conference record for most threes in a game. He was just on fire, and they beat the rivals, USF, and crushed them. They had no chance. That's, to me, the performance of the year. Unbelievable.
I want to disagree with you so bad, but I can't. I really wanted to, the Ashley Holder one is certainly up there. Just the weekend that she had. Rylan Thomas's series against Central Michigan, I think, was also just an amazing
Did you call one of those games?
That last game was the one that I did. But Matt Williams, that game where 38 points and 11 threes was, just like you said, it's very rare when you see an athlete in the zone. And we saw it that night. He just could not miss. And, every time that a ball went, that he was taking a shot, you can just hear the anticipation in the crowd, and everyone just exploded every time it went in. 11 threes in the game against your rival USF. I know USF had a bad year this year. I don't really care. 38 points. What a night that was for Matt Williams. All right, here we go. Coup de grace as we finish up here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast 2017 Banny Award nominee show. Team of the Year. All right, here we go. Nominee number 1, men's basketball. Going to New York City in the NIT semifinals, 20-plus wins under Johnny Dawkins in his first year, and putting the sellout game like we talked about against Illinois in the final game at home. Just an amazing performance by men's basketball this year. Women's basketball this year. Again, 20 wins. First year under Coach Abe. Performed way above expectations in their first year. And the expectations are going to be high heading into next year as well. 20-win season for them as well. Women's golf, American Athletic Conference champions, once again under Emily Marin. And also the individual championship, like we talked about, with Ashley Holder taking that home. What a year for women's golf. Baseball, 40 wins under a first-year head coach. Top 30 RPI. Greg Lovelady, first year once again. All the great performances with the pitching. Top 5 pitching staff in the country at the end of the regular season. And then, of course, rowing, who swept the conference championships, made it to the NCAA, had their highest finish in the NCAAs in history, and once again a dominant performance in the American Championships at home against not at home, but in the home state against the rest of the field in Sarasota. 3-time champions once again. So 5 tough nominees. Who you got?
In a normal year, normal circumstances, I would pick the team that won the conference championship and go to the NCAA tournament. Like a rowing did, baseball did, women's golf did in a normal year. However, in this year was unique, and I'm going to go with men's basketball. Even though they didn't win a regular season title, they got to the NIT. But this one was unique. This goes a team of the year beyond just on the court. This team going into the year was shorthanded. We had the limited scholarships. We didn't know how good this team was going to be. They were really bad the year before. There was certainly lack of interest in the basketball program. Let's be honest. I mean, the numbers kind of showed that going into the year. And honest, there were some people that questioned the hire of Johnny Dawkins. We didn't know. Well, this is just a throwaway year, maybe. Maybe you're a 500-year team at best. And yet, I felt like because of all those storylines, I felt like they were like an underdog team all year. And then they got off to that good start, like we mentioned earlier in the podcast, with the tournament in November, had a good showing. And then they're like, wow, they're playing pretty well. And then as you get into conference, they had their little hiccups there, but got it together. And I felt like as the year was going on, you just kind of felt like this team, everybody was rooting for this team. Everybody's trying to will this team to victory. It's like, oh, man, we're so shorthanded. Can we find that extra possession or two to find a way to win that game against, whether it be at East Carolina or whether it be against Houston at home or whether it be against Cincinnati to end the regular season. They crushed Memphis in the conference tournament. Think back to the win at USF, where they were trailing much of that game, and they found a way to win that game. And then the win at Illinois State in the NIT. I know I'm going back and forth on this, but it was just a roller coaster of emotions to the point where people that follow the basketball team, we didn't want the year to end. And then they beat Illinois State, and then the Illinois game that we talked about was unbelievable. And I just feel like there was just a romantic, I don't know, it's cliche or maybe, but there was just something about
a love affair.
There was just something about it, and I think we saw that kind of come out when they stormed the court, not only in the Illinois win, which we've already documented, but the Cincinnati win. People forget they stormed the court there, and that game I think was a perfect example of describing this team. They were battling. It was a defensive struggle against Cincinnati. They had a double-digit lead offensively, and then they struggled offensively. That you could tell they were getting tired. You could tell that the lack of depth was getting to them a little bit. Plus, Cincinnati was very good defensively. But you were just kind of hoping. You were just kind of trying to will that team to victory. And then, that B.J. Taylor hits a shot. Cincinnati misses an alley-oop. Next thing you know, they win the game, and everybody storms the court. Like, wow, we did it. They beat Cincinnati. And so for those reasons, I think this team transcended just the basketball fan. I think they transcended to a lot of people that haven't followed basketball in a long time. They're all of a sudden were like, whoa, I got to follow this team. And maybe even turn some people that don't like basketball, and all of a sudden turn them into a basketball fan. And there were people that UCF alums that were just supporting the team and the program. So it's very unique, but that's why I have to go with UCF basketball because let's be honest, Jeff, when you go back 5, 10, 20 years from now and you look back at 2017, I think the first thing that's going to pop in their head in the 2016-2017 athletic year is UCF basketball.
Excellent point, all. And this is a tough one for me because I would certainly be on board with that in general. But remember what I said about dominance? That I like to look at what dominance means. All right? Who is dominant? Who just had a stranglehold on their competition and didn't let go? And that's why I got to give it to UCF rowing. Couple reasons. Number one, due respect, of course, to men's hoops, women's hoops. But I think one of the things you got to do, you got to bring home some hardware. And boy, did UCF rowing do that. It was their third straight American Athletic Conference championship. They swept all 6 events in Sarasota en route to winning the American. And in a sport where it really comes down to they're racing against the clock, okay? For them to do what they do, to dominate the way they did, and we talked about Becky Kramer and the job that she's done with this program. It's mind-blowing, and they don't get enough credit for it. So I'm going with UCF rowing as the team of the year because, in my opinion, due respect to everybody else, but I think they deserve it the most because of how dominant they were over their competition. All right. So there's our nominees for all of our awards. We're posting each of these on a Twitter poll, and you can see this. If you're on Black and Gold Banneret right now, you can see it below. And your job as the fan is to vote in all of these for all of these awards. And we will read off the awards. We will pass out the awards next week on the Black and Gold Banneret podcast, show number 51. And like I said, we've tried to talk you guys through it, but now it's up to you. So you, the fan, you, the listener, our thanks to you is we're putting the awards in your court to see who's going to take these awards home in our first ever Banny Awards. So, Eric Lopez, as we finish up here, what do you got coming up this week? What do you think about what we're doing here so far?
This is fun. I'm glad we're ending this because
this was really hard, wasn't it? This is one of the hardest things we've done.
Listen, if we would have gone another half hour, I probably would have changed my mind on most all the other categories. I already did that on once. I did that on Game of the Year. Heck, how do we not have Becky Kramer on Coach of the Year after you just presented that case for Team Rowing? Holy mackerel!
If she gets it, listen. If they win the award, I'm printing something out and I'm giving it to her individually because she deserves it.
Fair enough. But no, look, it's fun and it was fun to do. A lot of fun debate. Interested to see what the fans think, but certainly, yeah, I know that this has meant a lot to you, because I know for years you've always wanted to do something like this, because I know, UCF has their Swords Awards, which is completely different. It's not necessarily just athletic achievement on the field, but off the field and stuff like that. But I know one of your, frustrations is that they do it in April when there's still baseball and softball and track and golf and tennis still going on. Right. Part of the reason why they do it is because that's the only time they can get everybody together before everybody has their final exams and moves on. But the beauty is we don't have to depend on them to being around. We can just do it ourselves, and that's what we did here. So I guarantee, go easy on us. I know we're going to get ripped a lot, especially you, Jeff. You always seem to get the negative on here. That's okay. That's fair.
Fine. I don't care. Bring it on. I've heard it all before.
But yeah, certainly I hope that everybody kind of votes and give them feedback, and that's always fun. So that hopefully next year it's even harder, right? We want more. We want this to be as hard as possible.
Yeah, and like I said, this is one of the more difficult tasks that I think we've ever done with this podcast. But I mean, this is also fun because we got to relive a lot of things here. So again, don't forget to follow us at UCF_Banneret on Twitter, which is where we're going to be conducting these polls. You can follow me at Jeff_Sharon. You can follow Eric at Eric Lopez Elo. Subscribe to this podcast via iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and tune in, of course. And on the story, and don't forget, you can also vote on the stories page, which is where I'm going to post the polls on blackandgoldbanneret.com. And you can also access us via Facebook at facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret. So once again, Lopez, what do you got coming up real quick before we bug out of here? What do you have on tap?
No, not much. I just want to also mention for the softball audience, I do a podcast, In the Circle. It's now on fastpitchnews.com.
Nice.
New home. So I want to make that announcement. New home. And we're really excited about the partnership there. And we'll be podcasting softball guests throughout the year. So for those of you, especially those of you that obviously know me with the softball, UCF softball, and you want to get more softball, that's where you can go to get your podcast stuff. So look for that and look for more details on that and how you can find that not only on fastpitchnews.com, but other places. On Eric Lopez Elo on Twitter. That's where you can find me for all the latest.
Good stuff. And you can find me as well at Jeff_Sharon. I'm going to be looking up this week. We had a busy week coming up with a number of things. By the way, I went to the U2 concert on Wednesday, so that's why we're a little bit late with this. But I was out in Tampa. What a show that was. So that was a lot of fun. And, again, we're going to have the polls up for a week. And when the results come in, we're going to provide those results for you in our upcoming show. So that's it for us. Eric, thanks again, brother.
Always a pleasure.
And thanks to you, fans, for listening. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret podcast. Don't forget to send us your votes this week here on UCF_Banneret on Twitter and at blackandgoldbanneret.com. For Eric Lopez, I'm Jeff Sharon. We'll catch you next week as the 2017 Bannies, our first annual Bannies, will be taking place in next week's show. Until then, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.